Welcome to the first programme, Piping People, a programme dedicated to you, the people all around the world who have a passion for all things associated with the great Highland bagpipes. Over the next half hour, we'll be talking to enthusiasts who work to maintain and preserve the piping tradition, not only here in Northern Ireland, but in Scotland and indeed overseas. We'll be chatting to Ian Embleton, Chief Executive of the Royal Scottish Pipe Band Association, based in Glasgow, about the forthcoming UK Championships due to be held this incoming Saturday, the 14th of June, at Stormont Estate in Belfast. We'll have the opportunity to hear from two international pipers, one a Canadian who has been here in Northern Ireland for a few years now and settled here, and the other who is on his second summer trip across the Atlantic from the USA to fulfil his ambition of playing with one of Northern Ireland's top pipe bands. And in the studio tonight, I'll be talking to the creator of the Belfast Tattoo about the success of this new project in Northern Ireland and what he has planned for this year's show to be held in the Odyssey Arena, Belfast in September. Northern Ireland is renowned for its wealth of talented pipers, drummers and drum majors, and recently they made their mark at the British Championships held in Bathgate, Scotland. Current and reigning world champions Field Marshal Montgomery Pipe Band clinched their 12th Grade 1 championship title as they commenced their 2014 championship season. So congratulations to Pipe Major Richard Parks, MBE, and Drum Sergeant Keith Orr, and all of the members associated with the band. We'll certainly be watching very closely to see how they perform at the UK Championships this Saturday. However, not only does Northern Ireland have world champion bands, we have also some very talented drum majors. And they too continually make their mark on the world stage. At the recent British Championships in Scotland, 3 young ladies brought back to Northern Ireland the British Adult, Junior and Juvenile Drum Major Championship titles. Well done, ladies. It was, however, unfortunate that the County Antrim section had to postpone last weekend's County Antrim Championships in Larne due to torrential rain. This was most disappointing for the organisers, and since the weekend, the Northern Ireland branch has issued a statement, and they said that they will work with the County Antrim section over the next few days to explore every possibility of rearranging the event to a date later on this year. At the beginning of the programme, we talked a lot about champions. Well, at the close of each competition, when a champion is announced, the winners expect to receive their prize, which is normal, either a cup or a trophy. And Roy McCulloch, he is the trophy officer for the Royal Scottish Pipe Band Association. And Maureen Moorhead spoke to Roy to find out more about his role looking after the silverware.
Roy McCulloch, you're a trophy officer and you're a champion in your own right, because it's really you that works tirelessly behind the scenes to keep all these trophies safe and clean and presentable and making sure that everybody gets the right trophy on the day. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. My job is at the end, or the start of the season, is to get all the trophies back from the winners from the previous year. So they come in the first week in May, I check them out. If there's any trophies missing, then it's my job to chase after the bands, and that can take a week or take 2 or 3 months to get the trophies back. So when I get them all back, then I have to sort them out into various competitions, then sort them out within the 6 grades within each competition, and 4 grades of drum majors. So then near the competition, I get them all out, I clean them all, put them into separate containers and bring them on the day of the competition to start it all over again.
And do you do this for every competition?
Every branch competition. There are 4 sections and they have trophy officers of their own, but apart from that, I do all the competitions. So I've probably at the start of each year, about 350, 400 trophies in my garage.
And do you have to clean them yourself?
I do. Some of them come back clean, some of them need a bit of work, but it's my responsibility. You know, well, it's a job, it's a task I undertook, and I enjoy doing it. I work by myself doing it, and nobody to argue with.
So how do you feel then on the day of a competition when you see your trophies being handed out to someone?
Well, I'm pleased. What pleases me more is people coming up and looking at the trophies before the competition. People who've come up and said, I presented this trophy in memory of my mother or my father 20 odd years ago, and to show it to them again, that means a lot to me as well, you know, that these trophies are still being looked after year after year. And sorry, sometimes they get damaged, sometimes they have to be replaced, sometimes have to be repaired, but it's nice to be able to show. I mean, there's one gentleman here today who presented a trophy on behalf of his parents 24 years ago, and I was able to pick it out and show it to him, and it brought tears to his eyes, you know. So
Would that be the oldest trophy that you have today?
today probably would be the oldest trophy we have in the branch is a Drummond Trophy for the All-Ireland Championships, which was first donated in 1947. So that's the oldest one I'm aware of, you know, that's still doing the rounds in the competitions, you know. But the oldest one today would probably be 20, 30 years old, you know.
And do you still have new trophies presented then from time to time?
Yes, year to year we have trophies presented in memories of loved ones, you know, and so we replace them sometimes with trophies of, maybe if they've been presented by the branch, we can withdraw them, but we'd like to keep out the memorial ones, you know, so we get it every year. We haven't so many this season, but we do get maybe half a dozen per year, you know. So.
Have you ever lost a trophy?
Personally, no. And it gives me great credit whenever a band comes to me and says, oh, we've handed that in. And I says, well, I haven't got it. And then all of a sudden, after weeks of chasing after him, it turns up, you know, but I haven't personally lost a trophy yet.
Okay, thanks very much.
Well, that was Roy McCulloch, who is a trophy officer for the Pipe Band Association here in Northern Ireland and does a tremendous job looking after all of that silverware. Better joy with him doing it than me. However, how far would you travel to fulfil your dream? Well, one young American piper has travelled to Northern Ireland for his second summer to fulfil his dream of playing with one of Northern Ireland's top pipe bands. Megan Lyons is also from Canada, and Jack Williamson is here tonight as well. And Megan, she'll be in the studio very soon as well to talk about her experience of playing with a pipe band in Northern Ireland. But Jack here, who's joining me now in the studio, discovered the bagpipes by accident, having accompanied his dad to a piping practice, but he soon too got the bug. Jack, good to see you, and you're very welcome to Northern Ireland.
Good to be here, thank you.
Good, you're very welcome indeed. So tell me, Jack, you're from Kansas, USA. What attracted you to the bagpipes?
I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. During the summer, during the summer of 2007, my father discovered we had Scottish ancestry, and so he just became enthralled with everything Scottish. And later that same year, he decided to pick up the bagpipes, and there was a local band where I'm from who offered free lessons if you joined the band. I didn't have any sort of extracurricular things going on. I'm not into sports or anything, so I just went along for the ride, and I've been doing it ever since.
You caught the bug, Jack. You travelled all the way from Kansas. That's quite a journey for someone to make just to play the bagpipes in Northern Ireland. But why did you want to come to Northern Ireland, and particularly to play with a pipe band here? What is the attraction?
Well, the main attraction for me was looking throughout history. Many of the world's greatest bands have come from Northern Ireland. The main one now being Field Marshal Montgomery, but even some of the lower down bands like Culibaki and Rivara have such a high musical standard that I wanted to improve my piping by coming here.
Well, you certainly are pulling all the stops out to do it anyway, Jack. But back home in Kansas, there is a tradition of pipe bands, I assume. And do you compete back at home?
Only very locally. Well, I say locally. Many of our contests are at least a 5 hours drive, but there are a few contests spread around the season, but not near as many as there are here. So
it's quite a journey for you to participate in the competition.
Yes.
Whereas here in Northern Ireland, it's probably no more than an hour's drive.
Yeah.
So it's a very special effort. So how would you compare then the competitions in the States to what you've experienced here in Northern Ireland?
It's very different, and in the States it's more of a spectacle for the audience, whereas here it's much more of a tradition for the band's people, a little bit more serious, but there is more joy out of it because there's more music.
And obviously there are more sideshows for family entertainment.
Yes.
And what have you thought of the experience here in Northern Ireland so far?
So far, I've really enjoyed it. Getting to know a lot of people. I have a lot of friends here that I've stayed in contact throughout the year when I had to go back home for school. So I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad Northern Ireland is having me again.
Excellent. Well, Jack, you're here for the second year, so obviously you're attracted to the Northern Ireland pipe band scene. You have come back to Northern Ireland to play with one of the top Grade 2 pipe bands, a very competitive pipe band, being Blairian District Pipe Band. What are you currently learning from your experience here?
I'm learning mainly how to be a really, really good bandpiper, what expectations there are, and how to take the music a bit more seriously. The expectations coming from the pipe major are quite a bit more serious, and we get a lot more done that way.
And would you find playing over here very technical?
Very technical, but also more musical. With the strong Celtic tradition and the Cayley tradition, a lot of the music is a lot stronger here.
Now, this is going to be a very difficult question. It's an unrehearsed question, Jack, but does Northern Ireland possess and retain the best pipe bands in the world, in your opinion?
Without a doubt. I mean, Field Marshal have been champions 2 or 3 years running, and before that they were champions more than a handful of times. So the strongest music is definitely coming out of Northern Ireland.
Well, it's a pleasure to hear you say that, Jack. We wish you well as you continue your competition season with Blairian District. No doubt you're preparing for the UK Championships this weekend, and no doubt the big one for you will be the World Championships in Glasgow. So we wish you well in not only your time here with Blairian District, but your career as you pursue your piping career back in the States. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
We currently sent out our crew to Blairian District Pipe Band practice just to see what they get up to in their band hall. Well, we're going to take another scoot across the Atlantic and to chat to someone else who has a passion for pipe bands and piping, and has travelled from Canada and has settled here and has now made Northern Ireland her home. Megan Lyons, you're very welcome to join with us here tonight on LGHS TV, going out live. Ooh. So you're very welcome.
Thank you, David. Thank you for inviting me.
Good to see you. Now, Megan, I don't have to tell you, but Canada is renowned for having producing some of the top pipe bands in the world. How did you develop the interest in piping?
Well, I'm from, or grew up just outside of a town called Maxville in Canada. It's in the province of Ontario, and the piping and drumming and pipe band culture would be very, very strong there, and that's due to the large number of Scotch, Irish, and Northern Irish descendants who all live in the area. Mm-hmm. There's some who have been there for many generations, such as myself, or some who have just arrived maybe a generation or two ago. And Maxwell would be host every year to the Glengarry Highland Games, of which is part of the North American Pipe Band Championships. That happens every year on the first weekend of August. It's a big, big deal for the local area, many days, and everyone looks forward to it. It's a highlight of the social calendar in the summer. And just learning, I step danced as a kid, and when I got big enough to hold a set of pipes really was when we decided to send me off to lessons on a Saturday morning at the Glengarry School of Piping and Drumming, and it just went from there.
And the rest is history, Megan.
That's right.
The rest is. Some people have a view that piping is perhaps a male-dominated activity, which is not strictly true, as we know here in Northern Ireland. In your opinion, what are the challenges for females in this perceived male-dominant environment, and what advice would you give to females watching this programme who might have an interest in picking up the set of bagpipes as you were those years ago?
Challenges would, and I think this has changed. I've been piping for about 20 years now, but it's definitely been, or would have been a challenge, and it still is nowadays, to get judges, bands, your colleagues, your piping colleagues, to take you as seriously as they would a male colleague, especially as you get up into the higher levels of competition. I've had, let's say in my past 20 years, I have had a few comments here and there about how women shouldn't be playing bagpipes and women don't wear kilts, and there was, even 15 years ago, I can remember at the top levels at the World Championships, the fear, or maybe the I don't know if it was more of a rumor, or there was a good chance people thought, as a woman, you were kind of under the impression that going into competition, there's a fair chance you were going to be cut, just because the band could not take the chance of being seen as weaker or having a weak link by having a woman piper in the ranks. And I do have colleagues who are actually over in the UK who pipe now, one of which who has played for one of the top bands in the world, who has had similar experiences and remembers, telling me standing on the field at the Worlds and having some other band members coming up from another band and saying to her, "Oh, you played today," as if that was a surprise, not expecting her to to have played, because she was, for no other reason than she was a girl. So I do feel that's changing, though. Certainly the way that I would be approached in Northern Ireland is different, say, than in Canada. I find the bands, and it's just society in general, the bands are very, gentlemen are very chivalrous here overall. And it is getting better. I'd say to any girl who wants to take it up, just go for it. Don't let it, you will get comments, you probably will, if you do it long enough, but don't let any of that stop you. You probably will have to be not just as good as some of if you want to play at the top level, some of your piping colleagues, you'll have to be better to be taken or given the same amount of respect. But just don't stop. It's a lot of fun. It'll take you anywhere you want to go. That's how I got here. It
certainly sounded nice. But how long have you been living in Northern Ireland, Diane?
I arrived here in 2010, so it's been just over 4 years. And it's gone by in a flash. I never thought I would get close to here. I can remember having a total band geek moment here when I was a teenager, 14, 15 years old, and listening to the World's Pipe Band CD, when the CDs first started coming out, and hearing Field Marshall's medley, and listening to that over and over and again, and thinking, how am I ever going to get near that band? How would I ever even see any of these bands? I thought I'd never even make it to the Worlds, so I finally have. I've played at the Worlds a few times before even moving over here, and now I live about 15 minutes down the road from where Field Marshall practices. Though I don't drop by, and I don't plan to, so it's okay, don't worry.
So it's all on your doorstep now?
It's on my doorstep.
It's all on your doorstep. But since coming to Northern Ireland, Megan, how do you view the standard of playing here compared to Canada? That's maybe an unfair question, but in your own personal opinion, the standard of play, do you see any difference, any variations?
Well, I would be very lucky right now with the standard of play in that I play in the Bleary and District Pipe Band, and I'm learning so much from playing in this band. It is probably the best band that I've ever played in. Maybe the only other band that would come closest to it is when I played in the Grade 2 Glengarry Pipe Band about 10 years ago when we came 6th at the Worlds, and it was led by Pipe Major Colin Clancy, who had learned the ropes with SFU. So that was very good. I'm trying to think, and I've given a lot of thought about this question because I would almost have to go back to Canada now and have a good listen to be able to, now that I know more and now that I've learned more, to be able to give a good answer to that. Of course, Canada, as you mentioned, has put out some of the top bands. SFU, the 78th Frasers in their heyday, they were the first non-Scottish band to ever win the Worlds. There's also the 78th, and I always get this wrong, 78th Highlanders out of Halifax, who are a very good band now as well. We have the Toronto Police, the Peel Police, the Glengarry Pipe Band, which actually has now merged with the Ottawa Police Service Pipe Band. So these are all very, very top-notch bands. I would say overall, just from the Northern Ireland, and I remember, thinking about this and discussing this with some people before coming over here, is this strange little anomaly of something that is about the size of Toronto, but with such a high concentration of very good bands, very good players. And that's just, something I've been very keen to find out why that is, and I guess it's because piping is such a big part of the culture here and is played bagpipes are played outside of competition.
I think that's a very positive note to finish on, to think that we have such a great wealth of talent here. And Megan,
Yes.
I appreciate you taking the time to come in here tonight. I wish you well as you continue to play with Bleary, and let's hope there's a few championships on their way throughout the summer for Bleary also. So all the very best. And
thank you, David.
Thanks for joining us. Well, that was Megan Lyons, who very kindly dropped in to see us tonight again. But this weekend coming up, we'll see the first of a newly created major championships here in the piping calendar. Organised by Belfast City Council in partnership with the Royal Scottish Pipe Band Association, the UK Championships will be staged on the grounds of Stormont Estate. Stormont is normally associated with political battles, but this weekend we'll see a different type of a battle. The Battle of the Bands. The battle to see who can be the winners of the first UK Championship title. And before we speak to Ian Embleton, Chief Executive of the Royal Scottish Pipe Band Association, let's rewind back to Boghall and Bathgate Pipe Band's performance at the European Pipe Band Championships at Stormont 2012. Well, on the line now, that was the Boghall and Bathgate performing at Stormont in 2012. But on the line now is the Chief Executive of the Royal Scottish Pipe Band Association, Ian Embleton. Ian, good evening to you.
Good evening, David. Well, good evening from Scotland.
Thank you very much indeed, Ian, for joining us this evening. It's lovely to get the Scotch accent. There's a few ladies in the studio who have been waiting on this moment, Ian, so well done. Thanks for tuning in. Ian, just in 48 hours' time, or slightly over 48 hours' time, Belfast will be hosting the first UK Championships. How did that new competition come about?
Well, David, last year we agreed with Powell Highland Gathering that it was becoming impossible to deliver a major championship at their venue to the standard that our bands were expecting. So we invited potential bidders to bid for a new championships, and we contacted a number of people, and I'm pleased to say Belfast City Council were successful bidders. We have a great relationship with the city over the years, and we knew that jointly we would be able to give the bands and the general public a great event.
And Ian, Belfast, as you rightly say, you have a relationship with them, and they previously successfully delivered a series of European Championships for 3 years in a row, yet they seem to fail to attract the World Pipe Band Championships event here in the city. How competitive is the bid process for a major championships?
Well, it's very, very competitive. We have a formal bid process now for all our major championships. Sealed bids are received, they're opened by our finance committee, and then recommendations made to the board of directors who make the final decision. Quite simply, the bid made by Belfast was a very good one, but the one from Glasgow was better, and it's as simple as that.
And no doubt it's a very competitive process, you say, but naturally, Ian, all the eyes this weekend will be on Grade 1. That ultimate Grade 1 title, and the first to see who will pick up that first UK Championship Grade 1 title. And I suppose in many ways it's a bit like the Premiership grade in football. What is the level, or will the level of competition be like on Saturday, and who are the likely challengers for the first UK Championship Grade 1 title?
Well, I'll deal with your first question. The level is about as high as it can get in one of our championships. I can tell you last year in the World's final, 8 of the Grade 1 bands who made the final are playing on Saturday. That's the level we're talking about. Really, the standard couldn't be higher. I won't be drawn in picking a favourite. The British Championships 2 weeks ago, the top 3 bands were separated by only 3 points. So it would be a man, I think, who would pick a winner out of that. There are 13 bands in the Grade 1, and I'm pleased to say the other 7 grades have almost 100 bands. One of the most exciting developments we have is the juvenile and novice juvenile grades. They're traditionally prominent in Scotland. We've got 15 bands in both novice juvenile and juvenile, and I'm pleased to say this year we've got the Ulster Scots Agency Juvenile Band now playing. So that's the future of the Royal Scottish Pipe Band Association, and it's really in very good shape.
And that's encouraging, obviously, for us, Ian, to hear that our own juvenile bands are beginning to show themselves to the world stage, and that's very encouraging. But finally, Ian, to the practical arrangements which we all have to think about, be we participants or purely spectators on Saturday. What time does the competition start at, and how many bands will be participating? And the big bugbear of all, what are the parking and travel arrangements like?
Well, all of it's good news. The first band plays at 10:30, and there'll be 4 arenas going and a drum majors arena going all day up until about 5 o'clock, when we get the march past and prize giving starting around 5. It's going to be a great event for all the family, and anyone who has not visited a championship before, if they come along to the march past and prize giving and nothing else during the day, it will blow their mind. When all the bands play together, it's really a unique spectacle. You've got almost 4,000 performers on the park playing together. We've been assured by the Met Office that conditions will be perfect on Saturday, and the weather forecast is really looking well. So I would advise everyone to come along to Stormont Escape, have a great day out, and the best news of all is it's a free event. There's parking on site, and I'm sure you'll have a great time.
Perfect. And the buzzword tonight, Ian, in this interview is free, and I like that. And just before we let you go, Ian, I suppose really the ultimate finale is the spectacle of the afternoon. It's the time when all of the bands assemble to find out their fate. For the benefit of those watching tonight who have never been at one of our competitions, just give them in a few words what they could expect to experience on Saturday, Ian.
They'll experience the best of pipe band music, and anyone who is born in these islands, you can't help but have a great sense of pride when you hear these bands playing together. The BBC Northern Ireland will also be recording the event, the programmes that will be produced later, and I can urge everyone who comes along, they will guarantee to have a great time.
Well, Ian, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to call into the studio. We wish you well. We look forward to seeing you at the weekend, and we trust that the first and many UK Championship titles have an opportunity to reside here in Northern Ireland. And thanks ever so much for taking part, Ian. And now there's an opportunity for some more music. Here's a flashback to the St Lawrence O'Toole's performance at the 2012 European Pipe Band Championships at Stormont. Well, that was the St Lawrence O'Toole, and one of the many top pipe bands that had the experience of being in the top 6 pipe bands in the world stage, and we wish them well too for Saturday. When you think of the word tattoo, most of us would automatically think of the world famous Edinburgh military tattoo. But last year saw the creation of 2 new tattoos in Northern Ireland. One, the city of Derrywall City Tattoo, and tonight also we'll be speaking to Colin Wasson, who is the creator of the Belfast Tattoo, a spectacle indeed. Colin, you're very welcome to our studio this evening, and it's great to be sitting beside the creator, if you don't mind me using that term, of the Belfast Tattoo. The Belfast Tattoo has experienced a very, very successful first year, and something I'm sure you're really proud about, Colin. Where did the idea come from?
Well, you mentioned the creation of the idea came from the Edinburgh Tattoo. And really, most tattoos, if not all, stem from the Edinburgh Tattoo. But it struck me when I had time in my hands that there was an opportunity here to give bands in general a platform to perform to the general public in a way that the general public hadn't seen, and to present them in a light that the public in general around the world hadn't seen before. So we worked at it and we put it together, and it took us 3 years to put it together. But last year we launched it, and the success of the tattoo has been immense.
Colin, planning a tattoo must be a serious amount of work, and I imagine it would take a considerable amount of time. Talk me through, just very quickly in a few sentences, the various stages of last year's preparation for the tattoo.
Well, in last year's preparation, what we had to do, and as I said, it took 3 years to put it together, we had to persuade all the local bands that we were serious about putting them on in an arena like the Odyssey Arena, and that a crowd would actually come to witness this spectacle, and that we would do it in such a way that was professional and would show them in a good, positive light. And once we got over that hurdle, and I'll tell you, it was many miles driving up and down the motorways of Ulster that it took me to persuade those bands to appear, but it was successful at the end of the day.
Well, Colin, we appreciate you taking the time. We're going to give you a breather for a minute or two, because we've got a call on the telephone here, and we want to go and speak to Mervyn Heron. Mervyn Heron is the Secretary for the County Down section of the Royal Scottish Pipe Band Association, and he's also Contest Administrator for the Northern Ireland branch. And Mervyn is very much involved in the planning for the future Craigavon and District Championships coming up now in a few weeks' time. Mervyn, how are you?
I'm fine, David. Yourself?
Great, Mervyn. We thank you for your patience. We appreciate that you're waiting to go into a meeting there, so we won't want to detain you for much longer. But I've just said there, Mervyn, you're Contest Secretary, you're Contest Administrator for the Northern Ireland branch, and you're Secretary of the County Down section. Can you just chat to me, just very briefly, your role as Contest Administrator? Because people just see you walking through the arena with a clipboard and a microphone, but there's much more to that role than the clipboard, Mervyn.
Well, it absolutely is, and you would know better than most, David, that it's a fully administrative role from once we agree the competitions right through to delivery and making sure they're managed properly and run properly, basically on behalf of the bands. And what you see every Saturday is what I do behind the scenes to get it to that stage, really. And it would probably take too long for your programme tonight to tell all that I do, but it's not just walking about with clipboard and looking pretty. It's pretty involved right through the season, right through even in the winter months whenever we're planning for the events.
I can imagine, Mervyn, but ultimately you're very key and involved in the planning for the future and upcoming Craigavon and District Championships that are coming up now very, very soon. When and where will that event take place, Mervyn, for the benefit of those listening tonight and watching?
It's on the 21st, Saturday week in Lurgan Park. It's an agreement and a partnership we've made with Craigavon Borough Council, who approached us incidentally to see if there was any avenues open to stage a contest. And at that time, yes, there was an avenue open, and they readily accepted a 3-year partnership with us. And this is the 2nd year of that partnership. And you couldn't get a nicer place than Lurgan Park for an event of this size.
And there's much more than the pipe band taking part there. You've quite an additional showcase event taking place there as well, Mervyn.
Yes, we in the County Down section, we always like to think of different things and what would the public want and what would the people want who may not be fully into the pipe band scene, as it were. So we have brought in traditional music this year for a wee bit of a challenge. We have headlining the whole thing is Blackthorn, which are quite a famous group, traditional musicians, and it's all brought together by Mark Wilson, who is one of our own judges and broadcaster actually in the Ulster Scots area. So it's a big thing for us. It's a bit of a challenge. It's what we want to try and do, and we would invite the people to come along, and you'll have lots of things to do, not just the 49 pipe bands and the 48 drum majors, but you'll have lots of other things to do as well.
Well, Mervyn, we appreciate that your time's a premium tonight because you've got an executive meeting of the Northern Ireland branch. But finally, before we let you go, and again for the benefit of our viewers this evening, give us in a few sentences what the general public or the visitor could expect to experience in Lurgan Park at the Championships.
Well, as you know, we have a large group of followers who are pipe band fanatics. Probably that's what you could call us as well. But we have, I thought I would make the magical 50, but we have 49 pipe bands. We pioneered the idea of the Grade 1 Field Marshal O'Toole's, Ravara and Cullibaggy playing, not once, but playing twice. So they play a march dance play and a medley selection as well. As I say, you have the traditional music going on and a purpose-built stage for the job with proper sound and all the rest of it. You have a drum majors competition with 47 drum majors, and then you have all the side shows and the stalls. And one thing that I will not forget about, David, is the charity. We have nominated the Northern Ireland Children's Hospice as our charity this year. R.G. Hardy's in Glasgow have given us a set of Peter Henderson bagpipes for a prize draw worth £1,200. And we have about £800 already pledged by local businesses around the Portadown area and further afield, people who support the pipe bands all the time.
Well, Mervyn, that's a perfect note to finish on. That's a very positive message to put out, that this is just not a very selfish hobby that we have, but we do try to do our best to support others as well. Mervyn, could I just, on behalf of all here at JHS TV, all the very best for Lurgan, and we hope, if nothing else, you get a dry day. Thank you, Mervyn.
Thank you.
Well, that was Mervyn Hearn, who very kindly came on to tell us a wee bit more about the Craigavon and District Pipe Band Championships, and we thank him for taking the time out of his meeting this evening. But before we go back to speak to Colin here about the Belfast Tattoo, let's remind ourselves of last year's Belfast Tattoo Spectacle in the Odyssey. Well, there you go. That was the spectacle of last year's Belfast Tattoo. A fantastic evening. I certainly was on top of my seat when the mass pipe bands came onto that special arena. But Colin, fair play to you. It is a spectacle. It's a very precious little jewel that you have created for Northern Ireland. But it's fair to say that there is quite a significant emphasis on Ulster Scots content in the Tattoos programme. How relevant is Ulster Scots in 2014, and how does it manifest itself in a modern age?
Well, personally, I think the Ulster Scots culture is sacrosanct. I think we are in danger of losing the Ulster Scots culture if we don't do something about it. And in relation to the manifest of Ulster Scots culture, I think this environment that we're in here tonight is the epitome of the manifestation of Ulster Scots culture, where it's forward thinking. It shows our best side to the world, and it shows that we are more than what people perceive us to be, and long may that continue.
And that's very, very encouraging to hear. But the plans, you must be really up to your neck at this point in time, preparing and planning for 2014?
Well, we've got a very strong group of people around us who are rehearsing constantly, and those rehearsals take place in all sorts of obscure venues around Northern Ireland. But from my perspective, I set the theme of the show, and those themes are now up to 2017. We're working on, and we know roughly which headlines are coming in up to 2017.
So we can expect to see a tattoo for a few years to come?
Well, so. We're booked into the Odyssey up until 2020 at the minute, and as I say, we know the headlines that are coming in right up to 2017 at the minute.
And are you allowed to reveal at this stage who your top act is this year?
Oh, well, this year we've got the 1st and 2nd Battalion Royal Irish Regiments coming in. We've got the 1st Scots, which used to be the Royal Scots and the King's Own Scottish Borderers, coming in to play. We have Lume de Beguera from Madrid coming in to give it an international feel. And we have, as I say, the core of our show will be the local bands, and we've got some spectacular and off-the-wall pieces coming in from the local bands.
So an exciting 2014 programme coming ahead.
It's hugely original, and people will not be expecting to see what they're going to see.
And remind us again of the dates of this year's tattoo.
This year we've gone to 3 dates because of the ticket sales, which Saturday's already sold out. And we have the 4th, 5th and 6th of September this year.
And just for the purpose and for the folk who are watching and viewing tonight, obviously you can still buy tickets. And where do you buy them?
Well, you can buy them through the Odyssey Arena, or you can buy them on Belfast Ticket Hub. If you buy them on Belfast Ticket Hub, you don't pay the ticket commission to the Ticketmaster. Which
is very appealing to people.
Well, it can save you quite a bit of money.
Well, Colin, we certainly wish you well. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
We wish you well. We're encouraged by our first tattoo here in Northern Ireland, and we look forward with excitement to this year, and indeed, if we're all living and spared, to many more years of Belfast Tattoo. Thanks you very
David.
much. Thank you. And that was Colin Wasson, who is the creator of the Belfast Tattoo, and a very exciting tattoo it is. And the atmosphere in the Odyssey Arena last year was just highly charged and electric. Well, I don't know what about you, but I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. This is the first Piping People programme. I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have in making it. We're going to leave you now with some more footage of last year's tattoo, and you might even get a glimpse of the Field Marshal Montgomery Pipe Band, the current reigning world champions and indeed recently crowned British champions. Good night.